to bring the meeting to order. Let's do roll call there, Andy. Here.
Here.
And we do have a quorum. Sam, are there any issues with any applicants tonight with there being a
Not that I'm aware of.
minimum quorum?
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we are actually going to adjust the agenda. The only adjustment we're going to make is we're going to have the school district present last for the sake of our residential applicants. But beyond that, I just kind of want to talk through, for everyone's sake, how this works. A lot of veterans at zoning boards before, but for those of you who haven't participated in one, we go case by case. We're going to make sure that the applicant is present or has representation. We're going to ask at that time if there's any party protestants. Party protestant is someone with legal standing in a case. They can cross-examine the applicant or the witness or any witnesses that the applicant brings forward. There are boundary limits to, you have to actually be affected by the applicant. You have to be within a certain distance. I think it's 200 feet of the subject property. And again, you are legally participating in that. So you can appeal if you choose the decision based on what we do tonight. Public comment is different. Public comment we'll do at the conclusion of the applicant's testimony. And that'll be an opportunity for residents or anyone to address the board. At that point, your role isn't to address the applicant. You're trying to influence the board to make their decision. Okay, so those are the two differences. Party protestants, there are conditions. Public comment, anyone can opine. Okay, so with that said, let's get started with application Z 2022-06, Debra Schroedel, 136 Rockwood Road in Newtown Square, pertaining to the subject property. The applicant is requesting an extension of their variance approval given in April 2022. Is Debra here? No. Okay. In her absence, I mean, we have the extension request letter as public record, right?
Well, we will mark it as township exhibit number 1 and make it part of the record as her application for a request for a 6-month extension.
This is a 12-month.
Well, that's up to the
Okay.
board. The ordinance provisions provide for an initial 6-month period. The board should feel otherwise. She is entitled to an additional subsequent 6 months
Okay.
under the provisions of 172-16. So it's
Okay.
entirely your discretion, but the ordinance is 6 months upon request.
Okay. Did you guys have a chance to look at the letter? The motions or alterations?
I mean, I think based on availability of materials, their material availability and labor, I think that's a problem everyone's facing. So, I'll make a motion to approve the request for continuance for 12 months.
For 12 months?
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. So 12 months, yes.
It would be 12 months from the date of
Yeah,
from the date of the
April-
original April 21st, 2022.
From the original date or from the 6-month period post the approval? There, the approval date was April 21st of 2022.
Okay.
They would have had to obtain a building permit under our ordinance 6 months in that period of time. So the extension, if I understand what the board is doing, is extending it 12 months from, so it's essentially 18 months from the date of approval. Is that correct?
Do you want to adjust your motion or you go with that?
That's accurate. I'm good with that.
18 months?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, the next is a similar situation. Application Z 2022-04, Matthew Salerno at 217 4th Avenue, Newtown Square, pertaining to the subject property. Applicant is requesting an extension of their variance approval, which was granted in March of 2022. Again, can we enter that extension request into the record?
Have it marked as Township Exhibit 1.
Okay, and you gentlemen had a chance, is Mr. Salerno here? Okay. In his absence, I mean, the board did have the opportunity to review the letter and the reasons for it. We have a thoughts or amendments there?
This is also a request for 12 months.
Correct.
I'll make the motion for 5.2 to be approved for the applicant requesting extension of their variance. Approval given in March 2022, so it'll be the 18-month, same thing we did with the last one.
Second.
All right, and I'm in favor, so the motion carries.
Fine.
Good job, Chair.
Who's that other guy?
I don't know who you're talking about.
All right, so next up, we have zoning application Z 2022-20, Mark Smith at 3505 St. David's Road in Newtown Square, pertaining to the subject property. The applicant is seeking a variance relief from section 172-29 B, subsection 6, to allow for the construction of a residential single-family dwelling on the subject property that will exceed the required side yard setback. The applicant also requests relief from any other sections of the zoning ordinance that may be realized during the zoning hearing process. The subject premises is located in the R1 zoning district. So do we have Mr. Smith? Come on up. How are you? Just make sure the microphone's on.
Yeah, green, just press that button.
All right. You gentlemen mind giving your names and being sworn in? Names, addresses, and sworn in.
Mark Smith, 3505 St. David's Road, Newtown Square.
David Lisanti, Lisanti, 2768 Old Cedar Grove Road, Broomall, PA.
Yes.
All right. Is the file in order, Andy?
Follows in order, or exhibits. They include the proof of publication, the list of addresses in which the notice was mailed to, also posting of the property.
For the record, we would ask that the exhibits as indicated by the zoning officer be marked accordingly. Township Exhibit number 1 would be the applicant's request for relief and all accompanying documents and exhibits. Township Exhibit number 2 would be the list of those individuals within 200 feet of the subject property who've been notified by direct mailing tonight's hearing. Township Exhibit number 3 would be notice of publication placed in the Delaware County Daily Times 2 consecutive weeks. And finally, Township Exhibit number 4, which is a picture of the posting of this evening's zoning hearing board of the subject property.
Okay, approved. Are there any party protestants for this application? Okay. And sir, so you're Mr. Smith,
Yes.
and your name again, sir?
David
David? So,
Lisanti.
okay, so what's your relationship to the applicant?
I'm the engineer and I prepared the site plan.
Okay, great. So why don't you talk us through your plan and why you're seeking your variance?
Sure. So my wife, Erin Smith, and I have been residents at 3505 St. David's for 10 years. We bought the house, marketed as a tear down, but we had other plans, lived in it for 10 years, making small changes, but a couple years ago, started dreaming of putting a new house on the property. We have a builder that we trust that has a product already designed, so no architectural fees needed. And we brought it to our engineer who said, you're going to need a side yard setback. And that's why we're here. We have gone to our neighbors and gotten letters of support that I could enter into the record for you as well. Two written, one verbal, which I obviously is hearsay, but all three of the contiguous neighbors have given support for the plan.
Okay. Is this the minimum required variance, given the site plan and the lot itself?
Yes. This is the product that they want, the house that they want, and this is the exact location that they want it. That's the minimum relief. They meet all the other zoning requirements. So the image that you're seeing on the left-hand side is the existing residence, which will be removed in its entirety. The right side is the proposed. You can see that the house will be a little bit more forward. It actually kind of maintains the side yard setbacks. It's just a little bit of it's been shifted over to the right a little bit. But if you see the zoning summary, really not that far off. We're actually improving just slightly the minimum and the aggregate.
Was this an existing non-conforming side yard as it presents
That's
itself?
what it looks like, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So we're reducing the amount of side
So
yard variance.
You're minimizing what you already have as a non-conformity.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I just want to,
Yeah, they're minimizing.
this is in the record, but your existing, looks like your existing setback is 74.9 feet, and you're proposing a wider setback of 75.5. Okay. You already have stormwater permits, or are you waiting on this?
We're waiting on this, but
Okay.
we have stormwater planned for the permit phase.
Does the township have any concerns with this? I mean, you're going to have to go through the whole permit process. I mean,
Right.
yeah.
Stormwater management, building.
Okay.
building code.
I mean, given the fact that you're actually reducing, or I'm sorry, increasing your side yard setback, you guys have an opportunity to ask questions, but otherwise, I'll make a motion.
Pretty straightforward.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve application Z 2022-20. With the condition that they follow, township ordinance permit process, especially related to stormwater management. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
very much.
So next, we're going to do application Z 2022-22, Nicholas Anderson of 3 Plymouth Road in Newtown Square pertaining to the subject property. The applicant is seeking variance relief from section 172-16A for side yard encroachment. The applicant also requests relief from any other sections of the zoning ordinance that may be realized during the zoning hearing process. Subject premises is located in the R1 zoning district. So you are Mr. Anderson?
Correct.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Is that microphone still on?
It is.
Green? All right. Do you mind just swearing in? Are there file in order?
Files in order, again, on our visual screen, you can see the property posting done by our property maintenance inspector, copy of the legal notice, the list of mailings to all residents within 200 feet and publication.
Okay, and Sam, do you want to move them into the record?
Yeah, for the record, I would ask that the identified exhibits, including the application with the exhibits from the applicant, be marked accordingly based on the testimony of the zoning officer as township exhibits 1 through 4.
Okay, approved. Are there any party protestants for this application? No, okay. So, Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Why don't you talk us through?
Sure. So this is I'm refiling for a variance that was approved back in January of 2020. Obviously, I couldn't get it started due to COVID. But we are filing for the variance. We are, I believe, 2.5 feet over the setback line on the back left exterior. It was on page 1. Yes, up there in the left-hand corner. Right there. Yes.
So just as I may, Anderson has explained, we just this evening you approved 2 extensions.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, this got beyond that time limitation.
I was gonna
of
say,
our
it's-
ordinance.
The decision's already in his application from,
Pardon?
the decision, the approval was already in his
Yeah,
application.
there
from
was a
previous.
prior approval, the same application, nothing's changed from that prior approval. Unfortunately, Mr. Anderson had to come back.
Nothing's changed.
Nothing has changed at all.
No alterations.
No
nothing.
alterations, exactly the same. I just unfortunately couldn't get somebody to start in time.
So are you ready to
We are,
shovel ready?
the shovels
Things in
are
place.
in the driveway, ready to go.
And now you're $800 later.
Yeah, fortunately, that's.
And 2.5 years later,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I'm not gonna,
No.
I just asked
Yeah.
the board, we do have a decision of the zoning hearing board that is dated November 19th of 2020 with regard to the applicant, with regard to relief for side yard setbacks. I just asked that the record include that as this would be the applicant's, part of the applicant's application. We'll make it applicant number 1.
all right, approved. I don't see any conditions in here either. I mean, I'll just,
Pretty straightforward.
yeah, so if you just want to make it.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve Z 2022-22 for the variance and for the same thing we approved back in 2020.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Second.
And I'm in favor, so motion carries.
Good luck.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right. So last but not least, we have zoning application Z 2022-21, Marple Newtown School District, 40 Media Line Road in Newtown Square, pertaining to the subject property at 3530 Goshen Road in Newtown Square. The applicant is seeking variance relief from section 172-33 B, subsection 3, to allow the construction of additional educational classrooms that will exceed the allowable building coverage of 15% is limited by the R2 zoning district. The applicant also requests relief from any other sections of the zoning ordinances may be realized during the zoning hearing process. Subject premises is located in the R2 zoning district. So, Mr. Petroza, you're here on behalf of the township.
Yes, sir.
Andy's a file in order.
The file's in order, and it does include the proof of publication, the list of addresses that the notice was mailed to, the school posting and property. I think that's it.
Sam, would you like to enter them?
I would ask that the following exhibits as identified by the zoning officer be made part of the record. Proof of publication is A1. List of adjoining property owners within 200 feet is T2. The physical posting is T3, and the application and all accompanying exhibits presented as part of the application be made A4.
Okay.
T4.
T4.
Sorry.
All right, approved. Do we have any party protestants for this application? Are there any party protestants for this application? Okay, do you fall within those criteria to be a party protestant for the case? Okay. All right, do you mind just stepping up to the podium so we can get your name, your address, and we'll get you sworn in? We're going to let the applicant do his testimony, but at least we'll have you on the record. So make sure the green light is on for that microphone, if you don't mind.
Press that button. Yep.
All right, so ma'am, do you want to state your name, your address, and the fact that you wish to be a party protestant?
Okay, Sandra Diorzio, 207 Robbins Lane, Newtown Square. Deorzio.
Okay.
And a capital O, no space.
Thanks. So we'll get to the party protestants after the testimony. Are there any other party protestants? You have swear in after.
Okay, I just swear you in real quick. You swear the testimony you give. Okay, thank you.
I'm assuming everyone else here is here for public comment, or are these witnesses that you're going to bring up, Mr. Joseph?
A little of both.
A little bit of both. Okay, all right. So why don't you walk us through your application?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Donald Petrosa. I'm representing the applicant, Marple Newtown School District, with respect to proposed addition to Culbertson Elementary School located at 3530 Goshen Road, Newtown Square, PA. The proposed building addition is about 11,621 square feet, and it's intended to be used for classroom space. There are not a lot of additional improvements. There's no parking lots proposed or anything like that. There are a couple of walking paths that we'll point out during the testimony that lead from the addition to different places on the property. In addition to our zoning application, this project will have to go before the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors for land development approval. It constitutes a land development as well. And in fact, we're scheduled to be before the Planning Commission 1 week from tonight at the same location. The development team includes Jake Gallagher, Director of Operations for Marple Newtown School District. Jake is sitting right back here. Architect Peter Medica of Bennett Associates, project architects, Pete's in the front row here. And Chris Potterjoy. I have a personnel list that has a spelling of everybody's name. I'll hand up. Chris Potterjoy of Pennoni Associates, civil engineer for the project as well. I should also mention that Dr. Tina Kane is here this evening, superintendent of schools, as is Principal Jim Wyga here also. The property has a gross lot area of 10.93 acres and a net lot area of a gross lot area of 10.93 acres and a net lot area of 10.39 acres. It is located in the R2 zoning district. We've requested a variance from section 172-29 B to allow the building area to exceed 15% of the lot area. So we're talking about building coverage is where we need the relief. The zoning ordinance allows 15% building coverage. The current building coverage is 13.7%. The proposed building coverage after the addition would be around 16.52%, which means we would exceed the allowed building coverage by about 1.52%. I think on the original plan that was filed, it may have shown 16.27. That was an error. We've corrected that, filed an amended zoning plan, which is one of the exhibits that we will be introducing. We did provide it to the township And I believe it was added to the list of plans as well. In the application, we actually asked for a variance to allow building coverage up to 17% instead of 16.52. And the reason for that is just to give the architect a little bit of flexibility. We're talking about less than 100 square feet of difference, but in the final design, sometimes it's necessary to make certain adjustments. So we ask for relief to allow us, which would be 2% over what the ordinance allows at 15%. We are not asking for a variance for maximum impervious coverage. So the building coverage is the percentage of the lot area that's covered by buildings, as you know, and the impervious includes other surfaces in addition to buildings, such as driveways, parking lots, and anything that is impenetrable to water. So the ordinance allows 50% impervious surface. The existing impervious surface is 39.9%, and the proposed impervious surface is 42.92%. So we'll still be about a little more than 7% under on the impervious surface that is allowed by the ordinance. So it's my understanding, however, that with at least to some of the people in the neighborhood and to the township, the issue of stormwater management, which really is not a zoning issue that's before you this evening, and we will discuss that at the Planning Commission meeting, that it is of concern to the township and to some of the neighbors in the area. So we do, I just wanted to say that we do intend to comply with the township stormwater management ordinance and work with the township engineer on that issue. And probably equally as important as stormwater management facilities, which we are proposing, would be sedimentation and erosion control facilities. And we intend to work with the township engineer to do everything we can to ensure that there should not be any problem with respect to a runoff or those sorts of issues. Township staff has mentioned that to us. And in fact, the last thing I'll say about the stormwater management issue is that we, at the recommendation of the township, and it works fine for us, the stormwater management facilities, it's basically an underground seepage bed that would be in the area where the soccer field is towards the front of the property. We kept it away from the rear. People on Tyson Road, and I guess some on Robbins as well, which is to the west, had a runoff problem previously. And we did some things during a previous development that we got the approvals in 2018, was built more recently than that, that have, we believe, significantly helped with stormwater issues in the area. So that's basically it. And unless you have any questions of me, I would like to call Chris Potterjoy as our first witness, the project engineer, to go through some testimony.
Thanks.
And I'll hand up, you may already have all these, but maybe a little exhibit. There aren't a lot of exhibits.
Thanks. We just have to.
These are just okay.
Right there.
Been sworn. Okay. All right. If we may proceed, Please state your name and business address.
Christopher Potterjoy. Our address is 1 South Church Street, Westchester, Pennsylvania, 193.
And you're employed by Pannoni Associates, project engineers.
Yes,
Are you a licensed professional engineer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
yes,
And is Exhibit A2 in the exhibit packets a copy of your resume or CV?
yes,
And is the information on the resume true and correct?
yes.
I'd offer the witness as an expert in the field of civil engineering.
Okay, we'll admit him as an expert.
John, you're going to move his resume into evidence?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
We're going to
Do you
move.
want to just do A1 through A4? in the
Yes.
Record? Okay. So let's move A1 through A4 into the record.
Thank you. Is Pannoni Associates the project engineer for the proposed addition and improvements to Culbertson Elementary School?
Yes, we are.
And did your office prepare the zoning plan, which was originally dated June 14th, 2022, which was submitted with the zoning application?
Yes,
And was that plan amended on July 19th with a couple of minor corrections to the percentages of building coverage and impervious coverages?
yes, that's correct.
I think the only other change in that plan, correct me if I'm wrong, may be that it shows a walking path from the addition to a macadam recess area.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Now, as Exhibit A3 in the packets, a copy of the amended zoning plan dated June 14th, 2022, revised July 19th, 2022. And do you have, in addition to the 11 by 17 copies that are in the packets, did you, at my request, bring 3 full-size copies so that if anybody on the board would like a full-size copy, we can provide that? Are you, would you like the full-size copy or are you?
We already have
We
it.
already have it.
Okay, yeah, all right, good. Now, please describe the proposed improvements to the property, making reference to Exhibit A3.
Yes, there's a proposed 1-story building with a square 11,620. The building's located on the northeast. There will also be a 5-foot sidewalk north of the building that
Make sure that microphone's on because they can't hear you.
Or just bring it closer. to the-
It's on, just
Yeah.
Just talking to the
speak up a
microphone.
little bit too.
there is a 5-foot sidewalk that is on the north side of the building that directs people to the existing driveway and parking area. And there's also a 5-foot sidewalk on the south side of the building that heads to an existing playground area.
And those are the improvements, or no parking lots proposed or anything as part of this project?
No, no parking lots.
What is the gross lot area of the Culbertson property?
10.93 acres,
And what is the net lot area?
10.39 acres,
And in what zoning district is the property located?
R2.
Is the only variance we requested a variance from Section 172-29 B to allow the building area or building coverage to exceed 15% of the lot area?
Yes,
What percentage of the lot area is currently covered by buildings?
13.7%,
And what's the maximum that the ordinance allows?
15%.
And what is the proposed building area shown on the amended zoning plan?
16.52%.
So obviously the difference is 1.52% between what is permitted and what is proposed.
Yes,
The ordinance also regulates maximum impervious surface or area. What is the maximum impervious area permitted for non-residential uses in residential districts under the ordinance?
50%,
And what is the existing impervious surface or area on the property?
39.9%,
What is the proposed impervious surface or net area shown on the plan?
42.92%.
So it would be an increase over what is currently there of roughly 3%.
Yes,
Will the school district be under the maximum impervious surface area allowed under the ordinance after the construction of the proposed addition and improvements?
yes,
And it's approximately 7% less than what's allowed.
yes.
Now, as I indicated in my opening, will the applicant be going through the land development process, at which time the township will have additional input into the project design, including the issue of stormwater management and erosion and sedimentation control?
Yes.
What conditions of the property create this issue with regard to building coverage?
The school itself is a non-residential use located in a residential district. The residential district does have a maximum building coverage of 15%, which is limiting for a non-residential use. The code, the R2 district does allow for a modification to the impervious coverage, whereas it does not do that for building coverage.
So that the code recognizes that a non-residential use is likely to have more impervious surface than a residential use. And it allows the non-residential use to have greater impervious surface, but it doesn't make that distinction with regard to building coverage.
Yes.
All right, now, because of those issues which limit the size of the buildings which can be built, is a variance necessary to enable the reasonable and what we believe is necessary expansion of the Culbertson Elementary School?
Yes.
Will the relief, in your opinion, will the relief requested, if authorized, alter the essential character of the neighborhood or district in which the property is located, or substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent property, or be detrimental to the public welfare?
No.
We will have some other testimony on this because it may be outside your area a little bit, but is it your understanding that the variance requested represents the minimum variance that will afford relief and represent the least modification possible of the regulation in issue? Another way of saying, is it the minimum variance necessary?
Yes, that's my understanding based on feedback from the client.
Now, just for context here, how far will the proposed addition be from the surrounding residential properties?
The addition at its closest points is approximately 166 feet to that eastern property line.
And you can, looking at the plan that's up on the screen, that would be the addition is shaded in a darker color, and that's the distance that is being shown right now.
Yeah,
right.
The plan is rotated. North is actually facing downward on the screen. Right. So east would be the left.
166 feet to the property line. Is that
Yes,
right?
correct.
Okay. And what about to the south?
210 feet.
Right. And to the south would be sort of to the back towards Tyson?
Yes.
Okay. And what about to the west, which would be towards Robbins and that area over there? What's the distance there?
Approximately 558 feet.
So at the closest point, the addition will be about 558 feet to the properties, the residential properties to the west.
Yes.
And some of those properties that are on an angle will be even further than that. Right. What about to the north, which would be across Goshen Road?
Approximately 119 feet.
Okay. Is there anything you would like to add?
No, not at this time.
The board might have some questions.
So I have the code up. In our code, and I just can't scroll to it fast enough. In our code, can you just restate that there is a consideration given for impervious coverage for non-residential structures in the R2 district? You said not for total building coverage?
Yes,
Is that
sir.
how I understand that?
That's correct. Yeah.
And you're asking for 2%.
And can you confirm that?
Up to a maximum of 2%. It may be less than that. It's going to be somewhere between 1.52 and 2%.
And all the options were looked at from an educational standpoint to a building standpoint to everything, that nothing could be done to bring that 2% down.
That's correct. And we'll present some
Okay.
testimony to that effect.
Andy, can we just get you to confirm that assessment of the R2 zoning district for non-residential structures?
Yes. I can
Okay.
confirm.
Thanks. Have any questions, or do you want to? Okay, so Mr. Petrosi, you want to continue on with your?
Yes,
presentation?
our next witness.
Township have anything so far? Or? Okay.
Our next witness would be Jake Gallagher. James J. Gallagher.
Yes.
Please state your name and business address.
Kate Gallagher, 28 Media Line Road, Newtown Square, PA 1907.
And are you employed by the Marple Newtown School District?
Yes,
In what capacity?
Director of Operations.
Okay. And we put a copy of the deed in the packet as Exhibit A1, and that is indeed a copy of the deed for the property.
Yes.
Now, would you just, in your own words, describe to the board a little bit about the need for this addition, why the addition is needed?
Sure. Obviously, like Don said, we were in front of the zoning hearing board back in 2018. We are in the process of completing and finalizing the addition and renovations that were completed back in 2020. The impact from program-related needs of the school. We have a top-notch autistic support program that is ran through Culbertson Elementary School. As an administration team, we have looked at different options throughout the different elementary schools throughout the district to move that program at one point. We met with the administration, we met with parents, and that meeting was a very emotional meeting that was held with school administrators, school board members, principals, and we met as a team to try to come up with different solutions to keep the program at the location that it currently is. With that being said, we tried to come up with this plan and present it to the board.
You talked about this meeting that was held and some of the parents came and spoke, and was it indicated that it was important to the families and to the children to remain at this location?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And the school district actually had plans to, as you say, to move the autistic support department to another location. And as a result of finding out how important it was to your constituents, and I mean the students and their families, the district realized that it had to stay at this location.
Yes.
And we'll have a little bit more testimony from Pete Medica, the architect for the project from Bennett Associates. But can you comment at all? Is the variance requested the minimum variance that is necessary to meet the needs of the district for this special program?
Yes, it is.
And could you just comment maybe a little on that? I know there are certain space requirements, and do you need to have, or let me put it this way, can you put fewer special needs children into a classroom than you could put students that were not special needs?
No, you cannot.
What I mean is, how many, take a typical classroom, how many students could you normally have in that? Forget the special needs.
So in a typical classroom at Culbertson, it goes anywhere from 19, I think, upwards. Jim, Mr. Wygo is here, upwards of, I believe, 24. I don't think we're at 25 quite yet. In the AS classrooms and the learning support classrooms, we are anywhere from 6 to 12 students in a classroom.
And there's obviously some support staff, probably more
Depending on the
support
needs, but, and then there's obviously, depending on the needs of the students, you might have a few more assistants, a few more teachers to help that need.
Is there anything you'd like to add?
That is it.
That's all I have this witness.
I have a question. Mr. Gallagher?
Yes.
What's the driving factor behind needing the additional space, right? So if the program already exists there today and it's functioning within the current structures, what's driving the need to have additional space?
Sure. So like Mr. Petrosa was saying, in the AS and the LS classrooms, you have 6 to 12 students in there. They acquire 28 square foot from the Pennsylvania Department of Education. If you were going to put a regular ed classroom, say a first, second, or third grade in there, where you can accommodate 25, up to 25 students that we try to accommodate in that classroom,
if we have 535 students right now currently enrolled in Culbertson, with the deduction of the AS or LS, we're not using the building capacity. In order to use those programs, and there's people moving into this area for these programs that are specialized at Culbertson, we would need to have a few more classrooms built to size the building. As you have 25 in third grade, you have 3 sets, so you have 75 students. If you have another section of LS or AS in that, you could only have 6 kids in a full-size classroom. You know, so we're not accommodating the full scope, but we're accommodating the needs of the children.
Let me ask you this way, maybe this will help a little bit too. If you had relocated the autistic support, or AS as you called it, program to one of the other elementary schools, which I guess happen to be located in Marple Township, would you need to do this addition?
Yes.
You,
To Culbertson or to that school?
if you had relocated the AS program to one of the elementary schools in Marple Township, would you need to do this addition at Culbertson?
Not right now, no.
Okay. So when the decision was made to keep the AS program at this location, that generated a need to have the addition. So
I think just for clarity, and you know, what I'm trying to get to is it enrollment that's driving this enrollment in the program and additional enrollment in Culbertson. That's what's driving the need for more space, because it exists today, right? At Culbertson. Right?
The program is at Culbertson today.
Right, and because you need more space because there's more enrollment in general, and then there's more enrollment into this program because you mentioned it's folks who are moving to this area because of the program like this.
Correct.
So my question is, are you building the right building for this school for the future?
Yeah, because we
So-
just major renovations already.
Right. And I'm sure that's why some people are out here. We just finished a major addition in Culbertson. There needs to be a master plan from the district for enrollment programs, things like that. We're now building again on Culbertson. Newtown has a major population shift. Program's very well known. The special education program is excellent at Culbertson and through the district. How, in your estimates with working with vendors, working with programs, enrollment projections, everything, does this fit the need for the growth in Newtown for enrollment, special education, moving in? Like, have you considered every factor? Because the neighbors are going through another construction program, and we know that's why some of them are here. Nobody's not in favor of a special education program, and that's not the case. It's, does the district have the due diligence? Are you going to come back to zoning again? Things like that. Like, what's the major impact with Culbertson with enrollment, ES program, and building more? I mean, that's what I think the bigger question is that Ed's getting to, and Mike's getting to, everybody's getting to, that, yeah, you're going to free up classrooms that are there now that are going to go in this building, and we're going to put regular classrooms in those. But does Culbertson have the capacity for at least 5 to 10 years of enrollment growth?
It does. If there's any future growth in Newtown Township, I can't answer that in the next 5 to 10 years. But as far as the needs that it would need for the district, yes, it does. And you mentioned, I guess, obviously we just went through a full renovation. There's something called Act 34. So you can only build a school as big as the needs that the school needs. So we need to submit plans to the Pennsylvania Department of Education. With that being said, we were 10 square feet below the needs of the Pennsylvania Department of Ed required. So we built the school as big as we could under those requirements.
And that's what the public needs to know, that PD does limit the school district on what they can and cannot do at the time you're building additions and at the time your renovation. So that needs to be known in public that this isn't really the school district. It's, you have a lot of other limitations from PD, from all that stuff, and even the reimbursements you get from PDE, that determining on what you do with Plan Con and everything like that.
Okay.
Excellent.
Have anything else, Mr. Gallagher? or-
I think that he's finished his testimony, am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Pete Medica would be the next witness.
I do.
Mr. Medica, please state your name and business address.
Peter Medica, Finance Associates Incorporated, 220 Baldwin Tower, 1510 Chester Pike, Eddystone, Pennsylvania.
And what is your position with Burnett Associates?
Executive Vice President?
Are you a registered architect in Pennsylvania?
Yes,
And we put a copy of your resume or bio as Exhibit A4 in the exhibit packets. Is that correct?
it is.
And one of the areas that you have a particular interest in is schools and school buildings.
That's correct.
And is Burnett Associates the project architects for the proposed addition and improvements to Culbertson Elementary School located at 3530 Goshen Road?
We are.
And you were also the project architects for the previous project that was mentioned that I guess was approved in 2018 and maybe concluded around 2020 or so.
That's correct.
Can you describe the building addition, what it consists of? Just
Yes. You mentioned the square foot size of the building. It would be a single story addition to the existing school, which is all single story. As far as the outside appearance of the new addition, it would be basically an extension of what was done in the last project. So you have a mixture of architectural block and metal panels on the outside, as well as windows, of course. Similar roof lines to what's on the other front wing of the school. So basically it looked like it was part of the building when finished. As far as the inside goes, it would be primarily 8 classrooms, as well as 2 small group rooms, some student restrooms, and some limited storage and mechanical space.
And you heard me mention that we had, although we believe it'll be 16.52% building coverage, we asked for a little bit of leeway to go up to no more than 17%. Is that important as an architect on a project like this?
Yes, yeah, when we're talking 11,621 square feet, that may vary by a few square feet as the final footprint of the building is worked out with construction materials. So,
and the difference between the 16.52 and the 17 is something probably less than 100 square feet, would you say?
yes.
Yes, okay. Which is about half the size of a parking space, is that right? Okay.
That's
Now, will the relief requested, if authorized, in your opinion, alter the essential character of the neighborhood or district in which the property is located, or substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent property, or be detrimental to the public welfare?
No.
Will the variances, in your opinion, is the variance requested the minimum variance that is necessary?
Yes.
Could you comment on that a little bit? Somebody might say, well, can you shave 2% off the building or 1.52% off the building? Sure. What would that do to the project?
Yeah, so of course, we looked at these numbers. Obviously, we were very sensitive to how big of an addition would be placed there. It sounds like a few fractions of a percent. You should be able to just shave that off, but when you're dealing with a property that's 455,000 and change square feet, that 1.5% becomes a pretty substantial number. The addition, as we said, is about 11,621 square feet. Half of that is 5,800 square feet and change.
get down under the 15%, we'd have to more than cut the addition in half, which would put us at about 40% of that building footprint, which would render the needs of what they have unachievable. So it's not like we're just taking away that 100 square feet to get us in where we need to be. Obviously, we've gone through those due diligences to make sure it's only the essentials for this building.
Is there anything you would like to add?
No, not at this time. Okay.
Is there a general contractor lined up for this, or who's the project manager?
I could answer that. No, so the project will go through a public bidding.
Okay, so that hasn't been done yet.
No, we're not there yet.
Okay.
Probably this fall, we go through a public bidding process, and select contract.
I guess my question to all the applicants would be, all right, if you were to go through this, I mean, what consideration could you give the residents who have just gone through a major disruption in the neighborhood, that this would be a minimally disruptive undertaking?
Well, naturally, as far as the construction project itself, we're trying to contain this to the minimum footprint possible, not just for the building, but also for laydown area for the project. So that's mostly, that will entirely be located on that soccer field to the east side. They're obviously going to take steps to control erosion control around the site. We'll have a planned location for egress and ingress for vehicles onto that location. We're purposely avoiding affecting the other sides of the school since it's nothing that needs to be disturbed there to minimize any disruption.
And the scope of the construction, can you compare with the parking lot that was built with the last project, the size of the last project to the size of what we're talking about here?
Sure. Yeah, the last project was extensive renovations, not only to the building, but to all utilities into the school and to the entire site. So we had major work done on every side of the building, except in some ways to the east side. Really all focused to the south and to the west side, as well as to obviously the front of the school. So there was extensive work done in those areas, and there was, of course, stormwater and utilities and all those things developed on those sides of the property. Paving in all areas were done. The front parking lot was expanded. This project, because we're not doing any new parking, there's not going to be that heavy disruption footprint and that laydown area.
And you said that the, I guess, eastern limit of that building is 166 feet from the adjacent property.
168 feet to the closest property to the east.
Okay. And I think it's the Gross, so they're not here. Is that okay? Was there any public comment electronically filed or physically filed there? No? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm putting myself in the position of that one particular neighbor who just went through this extensive project, and now they're going to have tractors and excavators and all that stuff rolling up, particularly that one neighbor to the east of the project. So can you, I mean, maybe suggest some ways, Andy, that this could also just be a planning commission issue too, but never mind.
I'm sure all these issues, stormwater management, sedimentation, erosion control, we looked at very closely by the township engineer, and we'll have discussion about it through the planning process, both with the planning commission and the board of supervisors. I would note that one individual who entered an appearance as a party protestant here lives on Robbins Lane, which is to the west, and the minimum distance to any property on the west is 588 feet. To her property, because of where it's located, I would venture to say it's well over 600 feet.
Okay.
So timeline. So everything goes through, what's the timeline of construction from start to finish? What in your, I know you can't.
Right, of course.
Right.
If all goes well, material availability, all those issues we're all dealing with, the project would be bid this fall. Contracts awarded before the holidays. Start construction in the spring as soon as weather permits. The objective would be to have this addition finished before Christmas of 20.
So it's a way shorter timeline than we did on
Yes,
this project than the other project.
that's correct.
I have quick question, and I know this might not be decided yet or figured out, but if I look at, kind of aerial view of Culbertson, see Robbins Lane, Tyson and Butler as, the streets kind of around the school there. Do you expect, or do you know if any of the, vehicles that would be used here, would you expect that most of the traffic disruption and or, vehicles would be coming in and out of Goshen Road and on the east side of that to minimize the impact of the community?
Yes, yeah, there'll be a construction entrance right off of Goshen to that soccer field.
Gotcha. Okay.
Again, to the east side of the
East
property.
side.
I have a question for council, really. So you were last here with your application in December of 2018 for the initial construction phase.
Yes.
And that was approved with certain conditions with regard to the project at that time. So the applicant agreed to similar conditions for if the board were to approve the application this evening?
I'm sure we would. To be honest with you, I don't remember what all of those conditions were, but I'm sure there was nothing that I remember that I found problematic that we couldn't agree to.
Well, the conditions that were put forth, obviously, all the construction and installation plans, certificate of occupancy are subject to the direction of township officials, and all necessary permits obviously would necessarily be obtained. There's a 6-month period which from granting of the application that you'd have to apply for your building permit. The appropriate drainage for the premises in question with regard to accumulation of water, which is stormwater issues. Abide by any testimony that you've given, sort of the standard but reasonable conditions of approval if they should so choose.
The only one I'd like to, I'm glad you raised that. I'd like to ask Pete about, Mr. Medica about, is the applying for the building permit. We have to go through the land development process. Will we be in a position to actually obtain a building permit within 6 months of the date of the zoning hearing board's decision, or might we need a little more time for that, considering we need land development and you also have to go through the public bidding process?
Based on the timeline I laid out, as long as we get through that bidding process successfully, we would be in a position to get building applications 5 months, 5 to 6 months, right there. Somehow something got hung up, mid scenario or something, which obviously our diligence to try to avoid that, we might have to come back for an application, but we don't.
Okay.
So I guess this is a good time for me to weigh in as the township on recognitions. So the township's already been talking to cooperative to some stormwater issues, location of facilities and direction of facilities. One problem that we had to lay, you can't predict problems, right? It was an E&S problem, directional flow, flooding out on Goshen Road. I mean, potentially they have stormwater inlet to stop sediment from going in there. That caused the flood to the basin area, and that was pretty bad. So we talked a little bit about this, but give it as a condition that, there's the normal compliance with the ENS permit process and conservation district. But if we could also have the additional condition that additional ENS measures, right, whether in a certain area means doubling the silt side. I'd say it will be required, but if at the discretion of the engineer, that's required that the applicant would just comply as a condition.
That would be acceptable.
I didn't want to preclude that these were the only conditions. The board can add whatever conditions they choose, so I didn't want to be limited. Rich jumped in, so I let it be, but.
Okay, do you have any other witnesses you'd like to bring
If
up?
I could just have 1 minute to check with one other person. I
Sure.
don't know if We've addressed it. Move for admission of the exhibits, which I think you already did. and
We already
we've
did. Yep,
addressed
A1
that.
through 4. Okay, so at this time, I'd invite the party protestants to come forward, come up to the podium. And again, this is your opportunity to cross-examine the applicant. You can have an open dialogue with us as the board. So the floor is yours. Yep. Just come up to the podium so we can all hear you.
Okay, hi, I'm Sandra, and somebody used the term alter the existing character of the neighborhood. Now, I moved in the year 2000. I only have a split level, but it's on a half-acre lot, and I'm adjacent to the path on the right-hand side of your screen there. And I mean, you would think there was a graveyard behind me when I moved in there. Nobody even knew there was a school back there. It was so quiet. It was a small school. And the walking path was just that, a walking path. And people used to walk their dogs. And I thought it was a lovely area. I still do. But what has altered everything inextricably has been all the building over on the other side of 252, the Ellis Preserve, the Lee Sitter, has like burgeoned our population in Newtown Square to the point where we need a bigger school. And that lot at Culbertson, the existing lot, is not big enough to accommodate what we need and what we're going to need in the next 5 or 10 years, as I think Mr. San Francisco was talking about. And we're really feeling the effects of it on Robbins and Tyson and Goshen Road terribly. I need to tell you that path there, which was redone and redone a couple of times, the sod never took on it, but that's another story. But people blow through there with vehicles. And when they find out that there's a chain at the end of Robbins Lane, they jump into my next door neighbor's driveway. I called the police a couple of times. It should be chained in the back of the teacher's parking lot, which it used to be many years ago, but somehow that chain disappeared. So God forbid if somebody was walking on that path, walking their dog, this happened at night one time, they would have been mowed down. Okay, that's number one. Number two, that path there with the chain at Robbins Lane, nobody ever X'd it off as a no parking spot. And it's for emergency use as well as a walking path. So somebody should have put a no parking at any time sign there. They were having, I don't know if it was kindergarten graduation or what, and somebody took that spot with their SUV, okay, and parked it there for an hour and a half. And I'm thinking to myself, all those people in that building are sitting ducks. This happened a few days after Uvalde, Texas. That's why it thought crossed my mind.
I'm gonna stop you right there because I hear your concerns.
It's scary.
The purpose of this hearing now is about the building itself.
I understand, but that's what I'm getting to.
Okay.
See, the building itself, you need it for special needs, and I understand that. That's a big issue today, okay? And Marple Newtown does a great job. One of my daughters went to high school there, and the other one went to Catholic school. Kudos to Marple, okay? I believe in what you're doing, and I'm a mother, I'm a parent. I'm not trying to say I'm against education or special education or anything, okay? But you're trying to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear there. That was meant to be a small school in a small neighborhood. And now we got a big neighborhood and we need a big school and we need a big lot. Because what I'm trying to get to is also the parking. Do you know what people do? They park up and down all the streets, not just Robbins Lane, even on the other side on Sunny's Way. They park all the way to the corner. I couldn't get out of the street when they were having something a few weeks ago. I couldn't make a safe left-hand turn because they were parked all the way to the corner. I had to make a right just so I didn't wreck my car or kill myself. I mean, and it was never like this for the first 20 years, but they started, you know, with all this building and now it's awful. I bought a half-acre lot to try to get, you know, some elbow room because where I come from, we didn't have that. And I thought, you know, I was lucky to get it. And now we have to put up with all of this. And, you know, I mean, I'm really despondent about it because people will do whatever they can. They just take liberties. The walking path is supposed to be that, a walking path. You know what people do? They drive their SUV and drop their kid off at the path. So we're full of cars every morning on Robbins Lane. It's-
Again, this hearing's for, and I know there's concerns about the
Yeah.
other things. We
But
are
that would
just,
bring more
right,
kids there.
we're just focusing on the building and the effects of waste management stuff. Like, your concerns are valid concerns, but that's for the police department, the school district, and I think, unfortunately, we're only here to talk about the zoning of the addition. So,
Right, and the
we-
lot's too small.
right, we really have no,
We can clean up.
Yep.
The emergency access, control of the access. In the land development process. Guys, heard that concern. So take a look at that. That can be addressed.
Like a local traffic only sign. or
Right.
something. I don't know. I
include
have no idea how that works.
Yeah,
but-
maybe the chain across
Yep.
there has to be marked
Yeah.
clear or something, or signage or
yeah,
striping.
unfortunately, as this board, we can't, that's not in our,
No, we can deal with that.
Yep.
Next week's the planning commission.
okay. But we hear you.
Yeah, now even the crew of workmen were cutting through everybody's lots. And okay, but I don't know for sure that they work. You know, they weren't even wearing a uniform. How do I know who they are in my yard?
And with that concern, we did hear everything's gonna be on the other side of the school and no construction should be on the Robbins side.
Not on my side, but those people
Right.
are gonna have the same problem that
Right.
we had.
Right.
That's my point.
Right.
Yeah. Just saying.
Yep.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
We hear you. Thank you.
Are there any other party protestants? Is there anyone here wishing to make public comment? Again, this is not someone with legal standing, but somebody who wishes to address the board in an attempt to influence our decision. Sir, go ahead.
Just state your name and residence.
Yeah, my name is Grant Snyder. I'm at 201 Robbins. SNYDER. And I hear what you're saying in terms of what you all are dealing with. But I just want to reinforce the questions that Mr. Lynch and Mr. San Francesco raised. Those are some of the questions. We went through this 4 years ago, and we were told at that time that the school district had looked at all of the things in terms of the enrollment and the growth, and that they would not be needing to do more. And 2 years after they built it, now they're looking to do more. So it's the planning and things. You raised the question of a master plan. That would be the type of thing that needs to really, the district needs to do instead of piecemealing things. And I would hate for them to come back again in 2 years or 4 years, having to try to do something else. It's not the right way for it to be done. So I'm hoping that they will do some of that. I'm hoping that as you're doing it, that, and some things I'm saying and some of the things the previous person said probably belong at the planning meeting, which is, I know, next week. But that's the concern. I appreciate what you all said, because you did get the feel for what happened with the construction that took place 4 years ago. It was disruptive in a number of different ways, and come back in such a short period of time is a concern. Thank you.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'd like to read a statement.
Just the name and
Yeah,
address, please.
address 3704 Chase Court, Newtown Square, Matt Holmes, my name. Matt Holmes. Yes. Noe, HOLMS. So I appreciate you having us here tonight. I am speaking as a concerned parent of a child who attends Culbertson. I was involved in all the meetings that came when we were given notification that the ASD program, autism spectrum disorder, was going to be moved. I was a part of all those meetings with parents. For everybody who's unaware, Culbertson started their autism spectrum disorder program almost 20 years ago. It was way ahead of its time. It's an amazing, unique program. I can tell you school districts that, you know, are, no offense to Marple, they're real close to here and they're ranked like top in the state. Like they don't have a program like this and they know it. I know counselors at Conestoga and others who've said Culbertson has one of the best programs out there. So my son started last year in kindergarten. To be honest with you, I struggle explaining to people what autism is. If you don't spend a lot of time with anybody who has it, then even if you do, it's really hard to explain. But what I can tell you is it completely dominates the family's life. We live with it, everything's structured around it, and it really is a spectrum. It used to be a lot of different terms, but you know, kids can look like they have ADHD, OCD, speech challenges, sensory issues, behaviors that can draw attention, like tapping, and they can have intense emotional meltdowns over trivial things. You want to talk about noise from this construction? I'll tell you about noise about my son, you know, crying hysterically, like his arm was cut off for 45 minutes because his brother wouldn't get out of his PJs in the morning. Like those things happen daily, okay? So what I can tell you is that, you know, at its core, the most common characteristic though is social and communication challenges and adjusting to changes in an established routine. And you know, one out of every 44 kids now gets diagnosed with ASD. It's the most common growing developmental disorder in the last 20 years. So the truth is that Culbertson was way ahead of its time, okay? And that history is important for what we're talking about tonight. A central theme to autism education is not just awareness, but what's called autism acceptance. Kids with ASD, they're really easy targets for bullies because their condition is not visibly obvious to, and even adults that have it compared to other disorders. So autism acceptance is a theme in a lot of autism charities. And really it's where Culbertson is incredible and unique, okay? It's not just the amazing faculty that's here, the educators, the aides, the curriculum, or the program itself, but really what they've built in 20 years there is this fully integrated culture of autism acceptance and awareness that the entire school has. Those kids that don't have autism that are there, they get it, they're used to it, and that's huge. You were to just pick that up and move that to a new location, the kids with ASD would regress like you would not believe. And so I heard a couple people tonight say like they're all for special needs programs, but I would tell you that if you vote against this expansion, that's a direct counter to that statement. So most of these kids, they're not even aware what they have, and it's really hard for them because they get exhausted with their emotions getting spent all over the place. And again, routine. I cannot tell you about the amazing growth my son has had at Culbertson, okay? It has been a transformational year being a part of this program. When we got notice that it might be moved, I mean, I thought there was a riot outside of Culbertson that day. To move this program would be a huge mistake on many levels. It's not only the crown jewel example of the best that Marple has, but it's really a model to be replicated for other schools. I'll share another personal thing. We've participated in a stem cell clinical trial with Duke University. There's only 600 kids in the world that have ever gotten this kind of therapy. We spent 4 days there 2 times, and we talked to them about what we do at the school at Culbertson. And Duke, which is like the global leader on autism brain research, said that is one of the most cutting edge school programs we've heard, okay? So if you rip that out, I mean, you're destroying your crown jewel here. And kids will go backwards. So I don't believe you'll find one parent who would argue their child isn't thriving at Culbertson. And the reality is our area is booming in growth, okay? We just need to accept that. And I know you have tough decisions you have to make. You have to abide by the laws, and you're trying to deal with other stakeholders out here who have their concerns. So I appreciate those, but don't make the obvious wrong decision and discriminate against some of our most challenging kids because of growth in our area and the fact that they could be the first that would have to get moved. So do whatever it takes, and don't take one of the few certainties in their lives away. You will be making a difference, and it matters. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Heidi Leone. My son Brady attends Culbertson. And we cannot say enough about the school and the school district. It took us some time to get him in the right place, and we finally did last year, and he has taken off like a jet. He is went from not being able to read, and now since he's been at Culbertson, he's reading sight words. He's 8 years old. He's doing math. He's writing, and he's so happy where he is. So what I wanted to talk about is similar to what Matt had said, is that it's crucial that children with ASD stay in the same environment. If you take them out and move them, they will regress, and it's actually been proven, and their symptoms can get worse. So it's paramount to these children to stay in the environment that they're in and have the continuity of caregivers and teachers and schedules. Moving them also takes them away from the environment that they're in, meaning they're in an inclusive environment. So they're around other children that are neurotypical, and they benefit from them. And neurotypical peers also do benefit from, for example, the children that have special needs too, right? So I just feel strongly that moving these kids out into another school is not the right choice. If you want to move kids that don't have challenges, that would be fine. Building the addition, hopefully, they can make the accommodations to make room for these kids. I just, from the bottom of my heart, don't think it's the right choice. And like Matt said, we need to be supporting the children with disabilities. I know there was talk about moving the kids to rural, but I don't think that they've adapted to the model that Culbertson has. And Culbertson has been, obviously they've had the AST program for years and now, and they may not be able to adapt to a different change at rural. I also wanted to mention that the school is one floor, and my son also has some mobility issues. My son has a genetic disorder that's the leading cause of autism. So he also has some mobility issues. So that was something else that when he moved to Culbertson, we felt very strongly about, him not having to do stairs. And I do believe that there's other children there that are in wheelchairs as well. Also, the staff there has been very accommodating and very friendly. The principal who's sitting here right now is transparent. He's always available. He'll call you right back if there's a need. The nurses are empathetic, responsive, and they have good bedside manner because they're used to this. They're used to working with kids with special needs. And that's so important. It is crucial in their everyday care that they have people that are used to working with children with unique needs. So I just can't say enough that I think that this is important, and I trust that people will get together and do the next right thing with making this decision. I think at the end of the day, it's important. And what I'm going to leave you with is just one last quote that I I always keep close to me, but it's not what we take when we leave this world, but it's what you leave behind when you're gone. So, thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.
My name is Matthew Leone, L-E-O-N-E. I'm actually Heidi's husband. I was not going to talk today because my wife has a tendency of talking and saying everything perfect for both of us. But I actually kind of just wanted to say that I'm sorry for all of you guys here, because I kind of feel like you guys are here because of us. 4 years ago, it sounded like you guys sat here and came up with a really good plan to put a good addition together, and really sounded great, and everything was going to fall into place, and kind of didn't really see that moving this one little autistic support program somewhere would cause this huge stir. And it's a stir for a reason. These kids are so tough. It's so tough for me, just like Matt said, to reiterate to you what these kids are going to do and how it affects them. But being a parent, it's impossible to please an autistic kid who doesn't feel comfortable. If you are in a school and you move him somewhere else, there's nothing as a parent I can say to him. It's 8 hours a day in a school environment that he doesn't want to be to. It's torture. He doesn't learn, he doesn't listen, he comes back. We know this. So when we heard this, it wasn't a riot, but we kind of stood up and said, this is, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening to us. I actually build and design houses. I know all the short-term or all the things that you guys were talking about with construction noise, debris, dust, all of that stuff. Walking paths, while maybe it's not good here, it's a big deal. Okay, all that traffic coming in there, it affects you every day. I'm sorry. This addition here, it's saving my son's life. It's saving a lot of our kids' lives. I'm not here to do something that's not important or just do something for the sake of doing it. But this right here is so important to us. I just can't even put it into words. So I just really want to sit here and say I'm sorry for every negative thing that comes awry from this. But I just want you to know, when this is done, when this is implemented, you're changing lives. You're changing kids' lives, that's most important, but you're changing the lives of the parents who are trying to guide these kids through this life. And I just want to make sure that I heard them say that you're being heard. You really are being heard. You're being heard from the parents. We get it. We are sorry that anything that we're doing to kind of support our kids and give our kids the best that they need is going to affect you in any way negative. That's obviously not what we're here to do. But as parents, you have to understand, and you get it, your kid is going to go down a path that's going to impact him for the rest of his life. You have to do everything you can to change it or affect it so it's not so impactful. And that's just what we're doing here today. I hope to God this goes through. This is, you use the word crown jewel, this will be the crown jewel. Autism support at Culbertson is amazing. I'm not going to be redundant, but these people here who make this possible, you can't put it in another school. And I just want to tell you now, I'm sorry for all the things that happen negatively that come from it, but I just want to thank you guys because we need it and it's amazing. So thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does the township have any final comments or closing argument? Okay. Did you want to make a closing argument or are you satisfied with your testimony?
I think those folks just did.
Yep. Okay, I will make a motion to approve application Z 2022-21 with the following conditions. That the applicant comply with the discretion of the township engineer for any additional E&S measures that the township engineers deems appropriate during the construction process. that the conditions the conditions outlined in the 2018 approval be carried forward into this application. And that the additional approval of an additional 6 months be included in this approval. So you would have a total of 12, given the fact that there's a this is the beginning of a process, right? There's a very lengthy process that you guys are going to have to do.
That would be very helpful.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second, and Durazio's working with the township, and next thing, just to make sure your concerns are also heard there too.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, there is no additional business. So we're going to